Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of the Late Night Intercourse with Chioma. Thank you very much for always making it a date with me every Thursday at 10 p.m. on this enlightening show where we discuss matters around family law. And as I promised last week, during last week's episode, tonight we will be discussing the legal implications of surrogacy in Nigeria. Thank you very much. Please, as you join, do me a favor. Help me share and invite your friends to join too. Your friends and your family. Please help me do that as soon as you come on. Thank you very much. I'm most grateful. Of course, my name is Chioma ONYENUCHEYA-UKO, the Zast family lawyer. So like I said, tonight we're discussing the legal implications of surrogacy in Nigeria. I know that we know what to help them carry a pregnancy, to help them bear a child that will become his own. So it means that for surrogacy to be said to have happened, the intending parents, who are the ones who are commissioning the surrogate to have a child for them, maybe for some reasons, social or personal reasons, medical or any of those kind of reasons, is unable to conceive or is unwilling to conceive. So it could be that the person, due to a medical situation, cannot conceive or carry a pregnancy to term. It could also mean that maybe for some personal reasons, the person is unable at the given time or unwilling to carry a pregnancy and prefers to hire a womb, as it were, that will help them or help him or her carry the pregnancy to term. And the implication is that that pregnancy, when that pregnancy is carried to the term and the child or children from that pregnancy is given birth to, the person who has commissioned another person to bear that child becomes the parent of that child or children. That's essentially the idea behind surrogacy. And traditionally, surrogacy has always been there, if you ask me. And one easy example I can cite will be what happened in the Bible. If you remember, when Jacob's wives were trying to have children, in fact, even when they had to procure their housemates to help their mother, to help their husband have a child. I think let us even go back to Abraham, the father of faith. At some point, his wife, Hagar, when she couldn't have a child, procured her, the wife, Sarah, procured her maid, Hagar, to help her have a child. That is some sort of surrogacy, except that in the two types of surrogacy that we have, being the traditional and the gestational, that was an example of traditional surrogacy. So in traditional surrogacy, what usually happens is that a couple who are unable to have a child, or a woman who wants to have a child of her own and is unable to, for whatever reasons, procures another woman to sleep with a man and have a child, which she will then call her own. But that happens through natural means because there has to be some sexual intercourse between this surrogate and the man who will be the father of the child. So that's the traditional surrogacy. But in the gestational surrogacy, there is no sexual intercourse between the intending father and the surrogate, or between a man and the surrogate, because there are situations where the surrogates, there may not be an intending father per se in the picture. Examples of where maybe a single mother wants to have a child, maybe because she feels she's getting advanced in age and does not want to wait anymore for marriage before having a child and preferred to just have a surrogate bear her a child. So there may be situations where there is no intending father, as it were. So, but what I'm saying is that as against what obtains in traditional surrogacy, where a woman procures another woman as a surrogate to sleep with a man and conceive and bear her a child. In gestational surrogacy, which is largely going to be the focus of this intercourse tonight, is a situation where a surrogate is procured by an intending parent or by intending parents, and that surrogate goes through an assisted means of reproduction, usually IVF, in vitro fertilization, and then bears a child, carries the pregnancy to term and bears a child for the intending parent or intending parents. So that's what usually happens in gestational surrogacy. And whether it is traditional surrogacy or gestational surrogacy, it can be altruistic. It can also be compensated. So what that means is that if it is either traditional or gestational, where the surrogate offers to serve as a surrogate for the intending parent or parents without asking for any monetary compensation, it will be said to be altruistic. And you find that happening mostly where maybe members of the family, relations or close friends offer to assist a loved one carry a pregnancy and bear a child for them. But that is not quite common presently, but that is what altruistic will mean. Or even if the person is a stranger, there are situations where somebody, is going through the pains of not having a child, and then maybe if they make that pain public, somebody may offer to help them carry a child as a surrogate. Where that offer is made, or where somebody accepts to act as a surrogate without a financial consideration, just on the basis of helping, on the basis of charity, that will be altruistic. But what usually happens, or what happens more, is that people do it in the hopes of some financial consideration. That will then be compensated surrogacy. So like I said, the two major types of surrogacy will be the traditional and the gestational. And whether it is traditional or gestational, both of them can either be altruistic or compensated. Then the next question to ask will be, who can be a surrogate? Of course, a surrogate can be any adult who is willing to act in that capacity. A surrogate cannot be a child. What it means that is anybody who is under the age of 18 cannot be a surrogate, because if that happens, it will then mean that you're exploiting a child, because a child does not have the legal capacity to enter into a contract. And usually a surrogacy arrangement is a contract between the intending parent and the surrogate. So a surrogate must be an adult who accepts and offers to serve in that capacity of her free will without, any form of undue inducement. So that person can act as a surrogate. Then, of course, I've mentioned the types of surrogacy, and then we'll look at some of the points to note about a surrogacy. Just as every other thing, there are basic ingredients that makes a situation a surrogate arrangement. What are those basics? Number one is that there must be an intending parent or parents who will commission a surrogate to act as one for them. And that intending parent would desire and be willing to have the child from that process be their child. So there must be the existence of an intending parent who commissions the surrogate to act as a surrogate for them. That is the number one point, the number one ingredient you will see to say that this is a surrogacy arrangement. The second thing will be that there is a surrogate, a woman who offers and accepts, who offers or accepts to have her womb hired, I'm using that loosely, to serve as a surrogate, to be able to carry a child to term and bear that pregnancy, bear that child or children for the intending parents. So it means that if somebody is acting in that situation, somebody is willing to carry a pregnancy, and that pregnancy is not for her benefit, that pregnancy is for another person, that child, the product of that pregnancy is not going to be hers, then that is a surrogacy arrangement. She is simply acting as, what do I call it? You know, just like a way, I don't want to use words that we may construe wrongly. She's simply acting as a carrier, thank you, for that pregnancy, not necessarily as a mother to the child in the womb. And one of the things you will find is that that child does not have a biological linkage to the carrier, being the surrogate. Then the other thing is that that pregnancy, and if you remember, I told you earlier that we'll be focusing on gestational surrogacy. We're not talking about traditional surrogacy. So that process of a gestational surrogacy will happen by means of assisted reproduction. The surrogate does not need to sleep with a man for that pregnancy to occur. The pregnancy will occur by the means of a medical personnel helping the woman by implanting a child, a fetus, an embryo, implanting an egg or an embryo in the womb of the woman, which will then develop into a pregnancy, of course, and the child or children will be produced therefrom. So it would usually happen by means of assisted reproduction. That's one of the ingredients that will confirm to you that it is a gestational surrogacy. The other thing is that the children born through that means, like I had mentioned earlier, are not biologically related to the carrier, to the surrogate. Why is that so? Because the egg used for the fertilization in that pregnancy is usually the egg of the intending parents or the egg of a donor. So it means that the egg of the surrogate is not used, because if the egg of the surrogate is used, as would usually, as will naturally happen in a traditional surrogacy, that child, the product of that pregnancy, becomes biologically related to the mother, being the surrogate. And sometimes it may cause some emotional issues in trying to, transfer the parentage of that child to the intending mother or the commissioning mother instead of the birth mother, being the surrogate. So what would usually happen is that it happens through assisted reproduction with donor eggs or with the eggs of the intending parents. And where that happens, there is no biological relationship between the child, being the product of that pregnancy, and the surrogate. What would the outcome will be that the child is either biologically related to the commissioning parents, or one of the commissioning parents, or at best a donor. So, but the child is not biologically related at all to the surrogate who has acted only as a carrier. And then another feature, or I may say another ideal feature, because this doesn't happen all the time, is that in a gestational surrogacy, it is best that the process is anonymous. In what means? In what ways? Anonymous in the sense that the surrogate does not know who the intending parents are. So usually, the intending parents acting through an agent or a medical personnel, or a legal practitioner or somebody will procure a surrogate, and the identities of both parties, or particularly the identity of the intending parents, is withheld from the surrogate. And there are reasons why this is ideal. It's to avoid exploitation, abuse, or blackmail. One of the things you see is that where anonymity is not ensured, the intending parents may become exploited. They may be blackmailed going forward. In fact, in some cases, the surrogate begins to make undue demands on them because they know who they are. And because childbirth or having a child is usually an emotional issue for parents, you find them obliging over and again, even if they are groaning under the burden of doing that. And sometimes threats of blackmail, if you don't give me this, I will do this, and things like that. And even after the contract is perceived to have been, concluded, and the child has been had, and the intending parents have taken their child, where anonymity is not observed, you will find that sometimes the surrogates may come back in future, either to come and say things like, I keep thinking about my child, or I just wanted to know how the child is doing, or things haven't fared well with me and I need your help. After all, I did you a good turn and I think it's time for you to do me a good turn too. So it can be any of those things. So without anonymity, it creates room for exploitation. And I have said, in the case of the intending parents, it may be such exploitations which include blackmail. And in the case of the surrogate, one of the things you will find is that because the intending parents have access or know the surrogate, sometimes they may also abuse the surrogate. Sometimes they may treat, the surrogate unfairly. But where it is anonymous and there is a third party acting between the both parties, that person is better able to protect the surrogate and ensure that the surrogate's best interests are also considered and provided. And please, like I had appealed earlier, if you've joined me on this program, please, please, please do me the favor of helping me share on your wall so that your friends and your family can see and join us too. And if you agree with me, it helps everybody to be enlightened on conversations or topics such as this. You never can tell how much this information will avail you someday, whether for yourself or for somebody you care about. So please help me share so that your friends and your family can join us on tonight's Late Night Intercourse with Chioma. Thank you very much. And as you already know, there is a prize offer up for grabs tonight. Unlike what we have done in the past, which is just offer a 5,000 Naira data prize, tonight we're offering 4 different prizes. First prize being a 5,000 Naira data subscription offer, and then 3 2,000 Naira consolation prizes. So that means that though we will have 5,000 Naira data subscription reserved for our first prize winner, we are going to be offering 2,000 naira data subscription to 3 other people as consolation prizes. And for you to qualify for any of these prizes, one of the conditions will be that you already shared this on your wall. So do me the favor and go ahead and share, because I want you to win these prizes. And then I'll continue. So I was saying to you that it may provide, situations or circumstances where either the intending parent or the surrogate is exploited if anonymity is not ensured between the parties. So that's one of the things. Then the other thing will be that, maybe the big question, is surrogacy legal in Nigeria? Well, because we cannot say that it is illegal, it then means that you can say that it is legal. Let me explain. The law in Nigeria does not prohibit surrogacy. But while there is no prohibition against surrogacy in Nigeria, there is also no law that provides a legal framework, as it were, for surrogacy. So it means that on matters of surrogacy, there is no statute that makes express provision for surrogacy arrangements, situations, or contracts, or any of those in Nigeria. So at best, the legal framework or the laws that will guide surrogacy proceedings, or procedures rather, will be subjects around contracts, rights of the child, maybe adoption laws, citizenship, and all of those. It will now be these pieces of legislations that you will need to look at to arrive at what may be perceived or may be termed a legal framework for the subject or matters around surrogacy. So let me clarify again. There is no law that provides for surrogacy in Nigeria. But thankfully, there is also no law that prohibits surrogacy in Nigeria. So it means that where a surrogacy is going to happen, the parties will be guided by the laws of contract, by things such as those. So it is not illegal, and that brings me to the next point, which is to say that since it is not illegal, contracts that are entered by parties to a surrogacy is enforceable. They will be enforceable as a private contract between parties so long as the terms of the contract comply with the legal ingredients that a contract should. So, for example, the parties who are entering that contract must be adults. That contract cannot happen between persons or a person who is below the age of 18. The contract must be entered freely. The person must give a free and informed consent, which is why in procuring a surrogate, it must be shown that that surrogate is acting of her own free will. Because if that is not happening, then it means that we are possibly, the parties are possibly getting into a situation of maybe baby factory or something like that. So it has to be that that surrogate is acting from a place of free and informed consent. So, and if there are considerations, all of those should be clearly spelled out and freely agreed by parties. So those are the things that need to be in that contract to ensure that it is a legal document that can be enforceable. So while surrogacy is not illegal, and while it is not also legally provided for, because it is not prohibited by our laws, surrogacy contracts can be enforceable between parties. And then the other thing will be that after a child is born through a surrogacy arrangement, what happens? What are some of the ways that this person who has acted as a surrogate transfers this child to the intending parents, and then the intending parents are able to say of a truth, this is our child? Bearing in mind that ordinarily, parentage derives from a couple having a child that is biologically theirs, or the legal option of adopting a child and bestowing, the parentage upon that child. In the case of a surrogacy, it is not as clear-cut as these two situations, because of course, the intending parents are not necessarily the best parents, even where the intending father is the biological father of the child. The intending mother in a surrogacy is of course not the best mother. So it means that she cannot activate the natural process of being the mother of the child. Then can she activate the legal option of adopting that child? So the number one thing will be that usually some people, I'm discussing common practices here, some of the things I see or some of the things I hear people do in trying to confer legitimacy to the child or the product of a surrogacy. Some people will have the surrogate depose to an affidavit where the surrogate says, I absolve myself of parental rights over this child, and this child can go to Mr. A or Mrs. B or Mr. and Mrs. AB. That is one of the common practices. But is that lawful? Is that legal? I don't think so. I say this because by our laws, parentage is not one of those things that you just casually donate to someone or that you just casually acquire. It happens through established processes. So while we don't have a law on surrogacy, we have a law on, registration of births and some of those other things, on citizenship of a child and all of those. So what it means is even on the rights of the child and adoption procedures. So what it means is that where an affidavit has been deposed by a surrogate, at best, it can be an expression of intention to have that child adopted by adoptive parents or intending parents. That in itself cannot be a legal perfection of the rights of the intending parents to become the legal parents of the child who is the product of a surrogacy. So yes, it is one of the practices. You find people just go and depose to an affidavit, of course the surrogate, and the surrogate says, I absolve myself, I'm not interested, I don't want to be a parent, I'm not ready to be a parent, I'm unable to be a parent, or whatever. But like I said, that can at best just serve as an intention of that surrogate to not, or inability to not act as a parent to the child, and can then be one of the documents that the intending parents will use in their pursuit of, legitimacy of their parentage of that child. The other will be a situation where, the intending parents try to obtain adoption orders to adopt the child. This is legitimate if you ask me, but then I realize that sometimes, maybe for social reasons, for personal reasons, some people are reluctant to consider adoption. Some people may perceive that after they have spent everything, particularly in a situation where the birth father, the biological father, is truly the father of that child, the couple may find it awkward going through an adoption. But whatever the reasons, whatever the considerations, an adoption is a legitimate means of, obtaining parental rights over the child that is the product of a surrogacy. But of course, not many people explore that option. And because there is no clear legal framework, I am simply telling you some of the things that happen in practice. Then the other thing that would usually happen, and that mostly happens actually, is that you find that the intending parents will simply register the birth of the child, and in obtaining a birth certificate, declare themselves the parents of that child. So it's either the intending parents doing that by themselves, or the hospital where that child has been given birth to proceeding to issue a birth certificate in the name of the intending parents as the birth parents of the child. Now, while this happens, is it really lawful? One of the challenges with that we need to consider carefully is the fact that in making that representation, the birth parents may not have said the whole truth. Because in the registration of births, the information given has to be true. Are they truly the parents of that child in the biological sense of it? But then, that's open for consideration. I'm only sharing some of the ways people try to legitimize parental rights over the product of a surrogacy, being the child from a surrogacy. Then the last thing I'd like to talk about will be situation where the intending parents go for a declaration rights as a means of legitimizing their parental rights over the child. Now, I think this will be a perfect situation. But then again, it is not a common procedure. I have not done one, but I hear that one has been done in Nigeria, and I spoke with a few colleagues who, have been able to successfully do that. So while the law is not clear on the procedure or the guidelines by which that can happen, I dare say that since it has happened, yes, it can happen. And what that means is that without adopting a child that an intending parent has commissioned to be born for them and possibly donated their eggs for the conception of the child, which will mean that that child is directly related to them by DNA. Instead of adopting that same child, they can actually approach a court and ask the court to declare that by virtue of that surrogacy arrangement, that child is theirs. And whatever details are then contained in the birth certificate of the child, those details will be true and not to be said to have been supplied, a little bit untrue. And then the last thing I would like for us to talk about before I invite you for your questions or for your comments, and then you enjoy the opportunity to win a prize, will be before commencing any assisted reproductive treatment. I think one of the most important things anybody should do, whether as an intending mother or as an intending father, will be to consult a lawyer. Because it is at the point of consulting a lawyer that you can enjoy more in-depth appraisal, analysis, guidance on the possible implications of the steps you're about to take. And then you are prepared from the get-go. Because chances are that most of the people who eventually settle for surrogacy do not set out for surrogacy from the onset. It's usually, I'm not saying always, but it's usually as a last resort after other means of assisted fertility has failed. So maybe when the intending mother has tried IVF directly, or tried ICSI, or tried any of the other means of assisted reproduction and it fails, they may then begin to consider surrogacy. So it is best to explore legal counsel before you set out from the beginning. It helps the intending parents understand the provisions of the law, the possible laws that will guide that process, and even the possible laws that will guide a possible dispute arising from the process. And it helps them protect themselves better from the beginning to ensure that nothing suggests that they have exploited or another, or that they have done something illegal. Like I said, the best time to consult a lawyer is before commencing any assisted reproductive treatment. I think this will be a good place to call it a wrap on my presentation. And because this is an intercourse, this is the time where I now listen to hear your questions or read your comments. And like you already know, for those of you who've been joining me from the first episode to this fourth episode, the drill is you can drop your questions in the comment box, whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube. Drop your question or your comment in the comment box. And please tell me where you have watched me from or where you're watching me from. I'll be really happy to know. Please, please, please don't miss to tell me that. And then you can also send in your question to our WhatsApp number being 090 80 000 633. I'll take it again. 090 80 000 633. So you can send your question on WhatsApp there, or you just go ahead and call that number if you'd rather call in with your question or your comment. And then you may also send us an email on our email address latenightintercourse@gmail.com. So this is the time where I listen or read to hear your questions or your comments. So I'm now checking the platforms. I'm checking. Oh, thank you very much, Elizabeth Alta. You say your favorite show is here again. Thank you so much for joining me, Elizabeth. Thank you for your kind comment. Leo Smart. Thank you, Leo. Thank you very much. Leo says, what a beautiful lecture tonight. Great indeed, and network didn't disturb me. Thank you so much, Ma. Oh, I'm happy to hear that Leo's network will stay able throughout the show tonight. Thank you, Leo. Thank you so much, Leo. I'm checking to see the questions. Daniel, thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you. I'm checking to see your questions. I'm checking to see your questions, so read your comments. I'm checking to see your questions, so read your comments. I'm checking to see your questions, so read your comments. Oh, thank you so much, Omang Dave. Thank you, my brother. God bless you. Thank you for the compliment. He says, great job. Thank you, Torrenti Kaza. Isaac, thank you. Isaac says, keep up the good work. You can't be an already married or intending married couple and not align your path with Mama. She is not just a barrister of the law and for the law, but a God gift to humanity, especially for families. Oh, this is so kind of you, Isaac. Thank you so much. I'm grateful for the compliments. Thank you so much. I'm happy that you find these conversations valuable and insightful. Thank you. And hey, my brother Ebenezer, thank you so much. Pato AJ, thank you, my brother, for always joining. Thank you. So I'm checking to see questions. I'm checking to see questions. I'm only seeing compliments. Thank you for all of you. I haven't seen questions. I'm checking to see questions. I'm checking to see questions so that I know if I need to respond to anything before we proceed to winning our prizes for tonight. Please, 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 just don't hesitate. Drop your question already. Drop your question already. On on YouTube, Daniel says great. Oh, thank you. No, Daniel says 100%. And then Vibes Plus. Thank you. Vibes Plus says great. Thank you for joining me. I can see you here and I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. So am I getting a question tonight from any of you? Or would you rather I just go ahead and ask my questions? And from what I can see here, not many of you have shared. And you remember that one of the qualifiers for winning a prize tonight will be that you have shared this conversation on the wall. On your wall. Please, have you shared this on your wall? Have you shared this on your wall? Because when I ask the question, if you haven't shared, then you will be unable to win a prize. So have you shared? Have you shared? Have you shared? If you haven't, it's still a good time for you to do that now. Because even if you win the prize and I check and you didn't share, then I will be unable to give you the prize. Please. Oh, someone is advising that you light up the studio. Am I not as visible? Forgive me. Forgive me. Okay, we'll take note of that and endeavor to do that in subsequent episodes. Thank you very much for that feedback. Thank you very much. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the feedback. I'm checking to see questions. I'm checking to see questions. I'm checking to see questions. I only see... Leo Smart, you said you dropped a question on WhatsApp. I can't find it. I've opened... Are you sure you got the WhatsApp number correctly? I can't find a message from you on WhatsApp. Or did you send it to me? Yeah, Leo Smart, I can see your comment. I can't find your question on WhatsApp. Are you sure you sent it on WhatsApp? Did you get the number correctly? Did you get the number correctly? Did you get it correctly? I'm checking WhatsApp here and I don't have a question from you on WhatsApp. I don't have a question from you on WhatsApp. Leo Smart. I've checked WhatsApp. I don't have a question from you. So check to be sure that you sent it to the right number. And thank you for confirming that you're watching from Enugu. Thank you so much, Leo Smart. I haven't seen a question. I haven't seen a question. I haven't seen a question. Oh, okay, Leo Smart, I can see your question now. Okay, but this question is not related to the current conversation. Tonight's conversation, yes, I can see it here now. Tonight's conversation is on the legal implications of surrogacy. But the question you're asking is on, you're asking a question on parental rights, on the rights, yeah, you're saying who is the biological father, who becomes the father of a child. Okay, this is something I would like to answer, but because it's not related to tonight's conversation, it may derail us a bit if I go into it. And it will be unfair if I keep you all for too long, longer than, the program should last. So, Leo Smart, I'm happy to take this question on a different, episode and then explore other legal issues related to the subject. So I'm happy to do that on a future episode, but not tonight because it does not border on our focus tonight. I hope that's acceptable. I hope you agree with me. I hope you agree with me, Leo Smart. I hope you agree with me. So that's what we're going to do. We won't talk about it tonight, okay? So I haven't seen, okay, yes, you confirmed that it was last week's. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. I understand and I appreciate. Thank you so much, Leo Smart. Thank you. I'm still checking to see if I have any questions that I've missed. Nobody has asked a question. Oh, sure. Ebenezer, you can contribute. How do you want to contribute? Do you want to post a contribution here and I'll read it out? Ebenezer is my colleague. He's a lawyer and he's also a practitioner within the family law spectrum. Yes, Ebenezer, you can go ahead and contribute, please. And I will gladly read out your contribution. And for those of you who want to also learn things, get some learning around, what do you call it, patient rights, Ebenezer Iguatu will be a good person to follow. So I recommend that you follow him and you can learn a thing or two from him around the rights of a patient in Nigeria. So he's my colleague and he's quite good at that. Ebenezer, please contribute, you may. Yes, you can do a phone call. Go ahead. Call the number 090-80-000-633. You may do that. And I think this will also be a good time to acknowledge one of my colleagues, Undiga.